reside in Atlanta and you are an accountant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We are endeavoring to impanel a jury to try an indictment against Steve Emerson. That indictment charges him with the murder of Linda Coolidge. Have you read anything about this in the paper? Or have you heard anything about it over the various news media?
Oh, yes.
Take a look at this.
I see. Mr. Cooper.
What do you think?
Terrific. Do you have any religious beliefs, political beliefs, or any conscientious scruples which would prevent you from returning a verdict which would make it mandatory upon the court to impose the death sentence?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Matlock, your witness.
Mr. Cooper? We didn't get you up too early to come down here.
No, I'm an early riser.
Yeah, me too. Gives me a chance to read the papers and look at the news on TV. Is that safe for you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You were telling Mr. Hopkins that you read something about this case in the paper. Are you a regular subscriber to any newspaper?
We get the Atlanta Constitution. We get the news. We get the Weekly Courier.
And so I take it from time to time you read something about this case in those papers.
Well, that's right.
Does your wife ever bring home the National Informer?
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think about these papers and the TV news? You think they've done a reliable job covering this case?
I'd say so.
You tend to believe it.
Yes.
Did you see last week's Informer? The one with the headline said, "Psychic says Emerson killed Coolidge."
Yes,
Your Honor, we have a real problem here. If Mr. Cooper read that article and believes what he read, then he can hardly be considered impartial. And on that ground, I have no choice but to request that he be excused for cause.
you're excused for cause, Mr. Cooper. Go to the second floor, please.
Selecting a jury, you don't select a jury, you kick off the ones you really don't want, and what's left is the jury. Any look tying Henry Marzell into this case? Not yet. Well, if he's involved in state government, somebody's got to know it. Well, I put out a few feelers. I'll stay in touch. Bye.
Jury selection continues in the Emerson Coolidge murder case, with a trial expected to begin on Monday. I'm Nelson White, and we'll look for you at our 6 o'clock news roundup this evening.
And you're clear.
Very nice, Mr. White, sir. I'll take that voice.
Excuse me, Mr. White.
If you want to talk to me, use a subpoena.
Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Well, maybe we do. I mean, you've become such an important figure in this case.
I can't imagine why.
Because your affair with Linda Coolidge.
Who told you that?
I'm sure you must recognize this, don't you?
Linda's diary. She wrote about me in there?
Mr. White. Now, how's it going to look to people if they found out you had an affair with her and then she broke it off, and then she tried to take over your news program and get you fired? I mean, it looks like you have a motive for murder. Now, seriously, wouldn't you really rather talk to me?
Look, it took me a while to figure out what a user she was. But she didn't break up with me. I'm the one who told her off when I found out she was after my job. Isn't that in there too?
No.
It's not?
No, it's not. Well, thanks for your time. Oh! Here's a subpoena, just in case.
What did you find when you arrived at the decedent's apartment?
Miss Coolidge was lying on the living room floor, bleeding from a chest wound.
Did you summon medical help?
The security guard at the apartment complex had already done that. The paramedics arrived shortly after I did. They determined she was dead.
I show you People's Exhibit 2. And ask if you recognize it.
Yes, that's a .38 caliber revolver.
Was a ballistics test performed on this revolver?
Yes, it was.
What was the result of that test?
Ballistics test determined that the bullet removed from Miss Coolidge's chest was fired from that gun.
Where was this gun found?
On the floorboard of a rented car parked outside of the apartment complex.
To whom was this car rented at the time?
Mr. Steve Emerson.
Thank you. No further questions? Your witness.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McCall,
Oh, hello, what is it?
you've been quite a help to Steve Emerson. We're all very grateful.
Oh, well, I'm sure you'd do the same for me.
No, really, you've gone out of your way.
Well, no, it was nothing really. Listen, would you excuse me? Because I have some people waiting for me.
But as helpful as you've been to Steve, I can never seem to pinpoint you for an interview.
Well, that is because, young lady, I have nothing to add that would be very useful, I'm afraid. Now, if you will excuse me. I am running a bit late.
Gee, you could always find time for Linda Coolidge in the middle of the afternoon, couldn't you?
Just what the hell's that supposed to mean?
This makes for very good reading.
All right, why don't you just tell me what it is you want from me? Hmm?
I'm just curious. When Linda Coolidge broke off your affair, were you so angry that you murdered her?
She wasn't worth it. Although I did, I threw away a 15-year marriage for her. And I suppose there was a moment when I would have loved to have killed her. But well, I guess I just wasn't up to it. Satisfied?
Pretty much. But here's a subpoena just in case.
Now, Ms. Harris, you testified that you saw Steve Emerson, the defendant, enter Linda Coolidge's apartment at exactly 9:30 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
How did you fix on that exact time?
There's a clock on top of my television set.
Oh, I see. I see. You were looking at TV, and when the program was over, you took your dog for a walk. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Well, that certainly explains why you were so precise as to the time. Now, Ms. Harris, you testified that before the gunshot at 10:15, you heard Steve Emerson and Linda Coolidge arguing.
That's right.
Could you make out what they were saying?
But I couldn't make it out, but it sounded angry.
Well, how do you know it was Steve Emerson's voice?
Well, I've been watching him on television for years. I recognized it.
Ms. Harris, isn't it true that you fixed the time of the gunshot because you were looking at TV and you saw that clock you're talking about?
Yes.
Ms. Harris, how can you be looking at and listening to TV and identify Steve Emerson's voice through the apartment wall?
I heard him.
I suppose you can assume it was his voice, since you saw him enter the apartment 45 minutes earlier.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be excused.
You want to tell me why you let her off so easy?
I made my point. If I'd kept after her, she'd dug in, stuck to her story from hell or high water. It looked like I was harassing a nice, sweet lady.
Could you tell me if she sublet her apartment to anyone? No, I wouldn't be interested. Thank you. Where have you been?
Corporations Commission. How'd it go today with flashing that phony diary around?
Not great. Both McCall and White thought it was the real thing.
I guess that eliminates them.
Maybe I should try it on Lockwood.
The boyfriend? Why?
Well, if he and Linda were to be married at the end of the month, why would she make plans to sublet her apartment and then go to New York?
Maybe Mr. Lockwood was going to go with her.
And walk away from his business?
Maybe.
And maybe not.
So where you going now?
I'm gonna go try this on Lockwood.
Let me go with you.
No way, Tyler. This one's on me.